Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. My name is John Campea, and this is Open Mic. Open Mic is just kind of a more casual, laid-back version of our show, of course, where all we're going to do is I'm going to sit here and I'm going to hear from you guys. You guys are our program managers here, talking about whatever it is you want to talk about. If you've got a thought, theory, opinion, or question about anything, go ahead and use the super chat feature and send that in. I will let you know that the super chats are already almost full. We're almost at capacity already. So the super chats are only going to be open for just a little while longer. So if you've got a thought, theory, opinion, or question, now would be a good time for you to send that in, because we're going to be closing it out pretty soon. Anyway, guys, good to have you here. I am going solo today, here doing Open Mic. We've had a busy day in the studio today. We had the main show we had to do. We're setting up Studio B for something going on. We had to record a new episode of Designing Hollywood today. So I said I would do Open Mic, and what a day to do it, with so much news coming out about DC, Wonder Woman being canceled, maybe the whole thing getting a damn reboot and all this kind of stuff. And let's get to your questions in just a second here. Let me start off by talking just a little bit about what went on today and what we've been hearing going on around DC with that report coming out of the Hollywood Reporter that not only is Wonder Woman 3 dead, which is crazy. I mean, we really should have been spending more time talking about just that today, but we had to talk about the bigger implications about what's going on with DC and everything. But Wonder Woman 3 got canceled. And again, I know we as fans can be very short-sighted and have very, very short memories, but this is a stunning development, because as the DCU was trying to get going, they were having a hard time getting going. They were having a hard time finding their footing. And then Wonder Woman came along. The first Patty Jenkins Wonder Woman movie came along, and it was the first major success for the DCEU. Not for DC, that was obviously Christopher Nolan's Batman films and things before that, but for the DCEU, that Wonder Woman film was like the first true success that the DCEU had. That was won all three of the hat trick. It was big success with the critics, it was big success with the audience, and it was a big success at the box office. Prior to that, they did not have that. None of their films had all three. Wonder Woman came out and had all three, and kind of set the template that, hey, the DCU can really work. This can work. And now here we are just a few years later, and it's done. They've canceled it. I mean, assuming that Gal Gadot's out, I mean, maybe she'll appear in The Flash in a cameo or have a small role in The Flash. Maybe. I've heard some whispers about that. Maybe. But Patty Jenkins is out, and it is crazy. But yeah, we've got a lot of stuff to talk about here today. I know you guys are going to want to talk about a lot of stuff, so let's not waste any time and get right to it and get to your comments and questions that you guys have been firing in. So let's not waste any more time and get right to it here. We're going to start off here with Johnny Weiner. And Johnny Weiner writes, I used to hate the idea of a full reboot of DC after Justice League, but I get it now. I will miss the characters they started, but I will give this a chance. The new DC, I hope they keep the same cast like MCU Daredevil. You can't keep the same cast. See, here's the big difference between the Daredevil stuff that was on Netflix and then that you bring over to the MCU. Daredevil on Netflix was universally beloved, right? Daredevil on Netflix was a huge success with critics, with audience, with the ratings. Huge, huge, huge success. Everybody loved it. That is not the case with DC. Now, again, I have given positive reviews to every single DC movie that has come out, except for Birds of Prey and the Fabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. And I think there was one other one that I gave a negative review to, but I can't remember what it was. But aside from those two, every DC movie I've seen, I've given positive reviews to. Some of them I've loved. But the reality is, it was incredibly divisive. Some less than others. But I mean, to this day, whenever I say Man of Steel is the most underrated comic book film of all time, inevitably I get a cacophony of this choir of people going, Man of Steel sucks. And that's fair. That's fair. If you don't like something, you don't like something. Nothing wrong with that. But whenever I bring it up, I every time I get met with this huge thing of Man of Steel sucks and Henry Cavill's a boring Superman and blah, blah. It's like, okay, and that's fair. But that is a lot of voices. As much as Aquaman was kind of a big hit with a lot of people, it didn't quite work. A lot of people were turned off of Wonder Woman, despite the fact the first one was such a success. Once the second one happened, a lot of people tuned out of Wonder Woman. Suddenly people are saying Patty Jenkins isn't that good. And, oh man, Gal Gadot's actually not that good. And everything was sitting, blah, blah. So yeah, listen, it's a totally different situation. The situation they had with Daredevil at Netflix, beloved, unquestionably beloved by the critics, by the audiences, by the success of the ratings or the box office in that case, right? To bring that over became a no-brainer. They could have done it differently, yes, but it kind of became a no-brainer. With the DCU, it's totally different. The DCU has massive baggage attached to it now. There is a perception out there, fair or unfair, that the baggage of DC is just that the perception of it is that it's not, the perception of the DCU by the general average movie-going public is that it's a second-rate citizen. Shazam was a fantastic film, made less than $400 million because people just don't assume DC movies are going to be any good. The Rock in Black Adam. Now, granted, not a lot of people know who Black Adam is, but it's The Rock in a big superhero film. That was really fun. I mean, I totally understand why a lot of the critics didn't like it and didn't give it positive reviews, because the movie does have issues. The movie does have problems. Absolutely it does. But for me and a lot of other fans, it was a lot of fun, and yet it couldn't make $400 million. And one of the, not the only reason, but one of the reasons for that is people don't believe in DC movies anymore. There is too much baggage attached to the DC brand right now. You've got to cut bait and start fresh. The analogy I made on the show this morning was this. You're looking, let's say Marvel and DC are two neighbors, and they look over at Marvel's parking lot and they've got a Maserati in the driveway, right? And you think, wow, we want to live up to that. And what did DC have in the driveway? They have a franchise that's filled with divisiveness, baggage, all this mixed success. Basically, they had a broken down, beat up, rusted out 1986 Ford sitting in their driveway. Now, you got one of two options. I said this on the John Campea Show earlier today. You can either try to patchwork it and fix it, maybe replace a door, give it a paint job, patch up one of the flat tires. You can try to do that if you want. But at the end of the day, you can give it the prettiest paint job you want. It's still a falling apart car on the inside. It's rotten from the inside. So you can try to do a little patchwork Band-Aid repair on it, or you can have it towed away and start with a brand new car. And that's where they're at. And as much as it pains me to say that, because you guys know, I will tell you right now, there is none of you watching this who is as big of a fan of Henry Cavill as Superman than me. If you've watched my show for any period of time, you know that's the truth. And so it pains me. And who knows, maybe James Gunn and Peter Safran will find a way to keep Superman around. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But if they do decide it's time to reboot, I think it's the right move. But anyway, that's just me. Okay. Just so you know, you guys flew in a whole bunch of more super chats. So I am now going to have to shut down the super chats because we've got just too many in there. So give me 1 second to turn the super chats off. Don't worry, if you've already sent in your super chat, it's safe. But I just have to get that straightened out. Okay. Let's keep going now. Cydia Swift writes, I've been hoping they would end the DCU/Snyderverse for a while now. I don't think they can completely move on and start fresh without killing it and burying it. Get rid of all the baggage. You know, listen, I don't completely agree with you, Cydius, because while I've said for years now that I think the best thing for the DCU to do is to reboot. I've been saying for years, I think the best thing for them to do is reboot. But I've also said, you know, they've chosen not to do that, and there are other ways to get this thing going. But they've tried other ways for years, and it's just not working. I mean, and I don't care how big of a fan of DC you are, you've got to be a little bit objective and stand back and look at the situation and acknowledge it hasn't been working. And what is it they say is the definition of insanity? Continuing to do the same thing, but expecting different results. If you think at this point, the best way forward for DC is just continuing to put on Band-Aids and do little patchwork repairs here and there, if you think that's going to turn things around, I think we're a little bit crazy if we think that. So, I mean, maybe they will full reboot, maybe they won't, but it is probably the best thing for them to do, but we'll see. All right, thanks a lot for that, Sidious. Luke1234 writes, tech questions. I love tech questions. Do you think there is enough value in upgrading from an Elgato Facecam to a Sony E10 or ZV-E10? Thank you very much. Yes. Now look, I am actually doing this video right now on an Elgato Facecam, not even an Elgato Facecam Pro. This is the original version of the Elgato Facecam. And as you can see, it's pretty good, right? For a webcam, this is pretty good quality, right? And the Elgato Facecam 4K Pro is even better. It's got a much bigger sensor. It's just a superior camera. But an actual mirrorless camera will always get you there. So you ask, is it worth it? It depends on what you need it for. If you're doing some simple videos and stuff like that, the Facecam is great. But if you've got the money, I think you can get one right now for about $500. If you've got the money, you want to upgrade to that ZV-E10, and you're doing a little bit more stuff with it, there is a noticeable quality difference. Because it's basically the twin brother of the Sony's A6400s, which we have like 7 of those in the office here. I even have a ZV-E10. I have a ZV-E10, and it's great. So it's definitely and noticeably better, but the Facecam is so good. If you're not doing too awful much with it, you might be best just to stick with the webcam. Anyway, hopefully you find that helpful, Luke. All right. Sidious Swift writes, if Rob is there, he's not. Any validity to Hot Toys fabrics degrading over time? Any tips on how to avoid that issue, if indeed it's true? You know what? I've heard Rob talk about that. I can tell you that, number one, it is true that older Hot Toys did have an issue with their fabrics degrading over time. But if I'm not mistaken, I think I heard Rob say that a couple of years ago, they changed the type of fabrics. They changed the type of fabrics that they have and that they use. And that I think I remember Rob saying that they last much better now. Again, you might have to ask that question on a John Campea Show episode. Or on one of the episodes of Weekly Hero or an open mic when Rob is on. But I think he said the fabrics they use now are fine. I think. All right. Next up, Culture Wars Diplomacy writes, I might wind up agreeing with someone's criticism of a movie or a TV show, etc. But if you hate everything, I don't care what you think. You aren't giving it a fair shot. I mean, that's true, right? Like when there are certain blogs and podcasts and news outlets and YouTube channels, whatever, that they literally hate everything, hate everyone and everything. And if that's the case, why would you ever go to them for an honest, real opinion about something? If they just, for clicks, they just say they hate everything. Why would you go for them for anything like that? Same is true about anybody who just loves everything. Why would you go to them for an honest opinion if you just know they love everything? Like, I mean, I get a lot of people that'll say, well, they'll write in. It's crazy because I get both types of people writing into me. I get people writing to me saying, John's so negative, he just hates everything. And then 5 minutes later, I'll get somebody writing in and says, John's just always positive, he just loves everything. And I mean, I just don't think either are true. If you just look at Phase 4, I love WandaVision. I love Ms. Marvel. I love Spider-Man No Way Home. I love Shang-Chi. I mean, there's a lot of things in Marvel Phase 4 I really like, but there's also a number of things I really didn't like. I did not like Hawkeye. I ended up being pretty disappointed in Moon Knight. I did not like Obi-Wan, although that's Star Wars, not Marvel, but still Disney, whatever. There's a number of things I didn't like. But yeah, I think if there's a person or an outlet that is always negative or always positive, then you can't really count on getting any kind of an honest opinion there, because you just know it's always going to be positive or negative. And that just becomes not very helpful to you. And that's why I always try to be, very clear about when I do like something and when I don't. Always be honest. And if we're being honest, there are things we like and the things we don't like. Anyway, all right, thanks for that, Culture Wars. Next up, Jay Bling writes, if you swap Cameron Diaz with Jennifer Aniston for the Planes, Trains, and Automobiles remake idea with Adam Sandler and Drew Barrymore, you have a movie with Sandler and his two favorite leading ladies. I mean, that's true because Adam Sandler's done a number of things with Jennifer Aniston, particularly on the Netflix side, and has had some success. And obviously he's, going all the way back to The Wedding Singer. What is it? 50 First Dates. Is that the name of the other one that he did with Drew Barrymore? That would actually, Jay Bling, that's a really good point. You'd end up with a really neat movie there. But then again, you'd have the two actresses who I don't think have ever worked together. With Cameron Diaz and Drew Barrymore, you've got actresses that have worked together there, but it's an interesting concept there. All right. Culture Wars Diplomacy writes, what's the most depressing visit by the Suck Fairy? Suck Fairy makes a show you like suck after reviewing. I'm not quite sure what it is you're asking. What's the most depressing visit by the Suck Fairy? Suck Fairy makes a show that you like suck after reviewing. I mean, the only time I can ever really think of that ever happening to me is with the Star Wars prequels. Because listen, I went into the Star Wars prequels. I was younger and I went into them just wanting to love them so bad. And then I like when I came out saying, oh yeah, I like those a lot. And then I'd watch them again and again and again and again. I realized, no, these are terrible. But that's the only really time I can ever think of that ever happening to me. I think that's the only time this ever happened to me. All right. Next up, Akshay writes, hey guy, by the way, tips in like a $20 super chat. Thank you, Akshay. Hey guys, I've been watching you since the AMC days. Thank you so much. I recently noticed that the colors of the logos for the first two Guardians films correspond to the colors of major characters who die in those films. Huh, I've never noticed that myself. Brown/gold for Groot. Was gold a Groot color? Anyway, blue and red for Yondu. Do you think that means Rocket will most likely be the one to die since the colors of the Guardians 3 logos correspond to Rocket? You know what? That might... Here's what I would guess here, Akshay. I would guess that those might be coincidentally true, but I think the original logo of the Guardians was just the original logo of the Guardians. I don't think it corresponded to Groot. So... it may be coincidentally that you had colors in the logos that if you look at it a certain way, they correspond, but I really don't see that was done on purpose, nor do I think it's something they would telegraph. Now, look, we've talked about it on the show. We think there's a very valid chance that Rocket dies in this movie, right? We think there's a very valid chance Rocket dies in this movie, but even if he does, I don't personally think that has anything to do with the coloring of the logos. Now, who knows? Maybe James Gunn comes out after Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and says, for those of you who noticed it, we kind of telegraphed which character would die by the colors in the logo. Maybe he'll say that. And then you'll be, oh my God, you were right the whole time. But right now, I kind of feel like it's just coincidental. At least that's my guess, but it might be a really good guess on your part. Okay. Jay Bling writes, I meant Three Amigos. Whoops. Oh, yeah, because we were talking about Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. I said, what if they did Three Amigos instead? That makes more sense to me, Jay Bling. But again, I still think it'd be cool to have Drew Barrymore and Cameron Diaz work together again. I think that would be more fun. All right. Thanks for following up, though, man. I appreciate that. Joseph DeFilippis writes, one of two. I have seen Spielberg's The Fabelmans twice since its release, and I love it. There's part two. I think it's his 7th best film above Jurassic Park, really above Jurassic Park. The Terminal, I hate The Terminal, and E.T., really? But not as good as West Side, Last Crusade, Catch Me, Minority. I've heard nothing but really good things, Joseph, about this movie. I'm very, very excited about seeing it again. It wasn't playing anywhere near me for a long time. And then when it did start playing near me, Ann and I went out of town for a number of days. We had a convention to go to. We had a different conference to go to. We were in Vegas. We were in Los Angeles. And I can't see it tonight because Ann's got a class to teach. So hopefully this week I'm going to finally be able to get a chance to see it. So thanks for sharing your thoughts on it, Joseph. I appreciate it, man. All right. Chef Rigo writes, a scene from The Offer that really got stuck with me was when a studio head told Rudy and Coppola, you make the movie and let the adults figure out the marketing. Wow. Is that normally how these things go? Honestly, yes. Like, there's still a lot of film fans today that think the directors make the trailers and stuff like that. They don't. I mean, maybe there's a 1% of the time that they'll have some control over the marketing. Like, I think Christopher Nolan has it in his deal that he can do that. But other than that, it's very, very, very rare that the directors ever have anything to do with the marketing of the film. The marketing of a movie is a very different art and a very different skill from making a movie, right? And that's why studios and exhibitors put millions of dollars into people who specialize in marketing and to getting people to buy the tickets. And for those of you who don't know, I made a documentary last year, getting close to 2 years ago now, called Movie Trailers, A Love Story. And we talked to one of the most celebrated historic movie trailer houses in the business. And they talked about how it's very, very, very rare, almost non-existent that a director is ever involved. So yes, that basically is kind of the attitude of the studios. You guys make the movies, you leave it to us to market the movies. And that is kind of how it works today for the most part. All right. Next up, thanks a lot for that, Chef. Sam Fisher writes, is there a Disney Plus Duo plan with no ads price? I don't know. I mean, the best thing to do is to Google that. Just go to Disney Plus and look up. I'm sure they've got a table there. We, of course, talked about that on the John Campea Show about what the price for that Duo is with ads. I don't know what the price for it would be without ads. I know they have a trio without ads, like ESPN, Hulu, and Disney Plus, all without ads for $20 a month. I think that was the cost. For a Duo, I'm not sure, but go to Disney Plus. I'm sure you'll be able to find the information there, Sam. All right. Jay Bling writes, I'm trying that again. Drew Barrymore pitched a movie to Adam Sandler and Jennifer Aniston on her show where Barrymore and Aniston get together and tell Sandler to piss off. I don't know exactly. Okay, Drew Barrymore pitched a movie to Adam Sandler and Jennifer Aniston on her show where Barrymore and Aniston get together and tell Sandler to piss off. Are you saying that's what the idea for the movie is? Yeah, well, maybe they could do it. Again, they both have worked with him a lot and they both work together very well, so why not? All right, CJ Rebirth writes, a year ago this week, I saw Spielberg's West Side Story. I love it, and I'm excited to see Rachel Ziegler as Snow White and Ari DeBose in Disney's Wish. I'll tell you what, listen, for a year, almost a year straight, poo-pooed the idea of West Side Story. I'm like, Steven Spielberg, you're the greatest filmmaker of all time. Why would you go and do some old, outdated musical? Like, who wants to see street gangs walking around the street going, nobody. Who cares? And then I went to go see it. And I was like, I will never, ever, ever doubt Steven Spielberg again. West Side Story was the best movie of the year last year. Should have won the Academy Award, in my opinion. It was an absolute masterclass in directing. It was stunningly beautiful, so well made. I will never doubt him again, man. I will never, ever, ever doubt him again. All right. Thanks for that, CJ. Next up, Joseph De Philippus writes, oh, we already had that one. Next up, Joseph also writes, there was part 3 of 3. What are your thoughts about this movie? Oh, I already kind of talked about it a little bit, so there we go. Remember Bulldog writes, I think this is a good move for the DCU to restart with a fresh take. Listen, I've been saying it for years. I mean, look, I've conceded that there are other ways to do it. There are other ways that could potentially bring them success. And listen, we don't know for sure. Let's be clear about this. We do not know for sure that James Gunn is indeed rebooting the DCU. Or sorry, now it's just called the DCU. They took the E out. We don't know for a fact that that's what he and Peter Safran are doing. But it kind of looks like it. And if it is, I think it's the right move. Now, they may have another plan. They may have a plan that's kind of half rebooting it, maybe trying some other things. I don't know. And maybe that can work too. But Yeah, if you were to ask me, I'm going to tell you the same thing I've been saying for years, man. The DCU needs to be rebooted. This whole idea of just trying to put Band-Aids on it and little wrap on it and apply some gauze and a little patchwork here and there, that's clearly not worked. Look at the results of Black Adam. It clearly hasn't worked. They've got to start fresh, come to the audience with a brand new product, and get off to a better start. And if there's anybody who can do it, it's James Gunn. He's the guy to do it. All right. Thanks for that, Rummer. Next up, Everything Everywhere, or the Everything Entertainment rights. 2 classic Nandor lines that are only good because of his delivery. We fed on them, but they were on drugs, and now I am a unicorn. That was a great line. And this would make a cute gift for a guy named Steve. Nandor, of course, is one of the great characters in What We Do in the Shadows. That show is so amazing. So amazing. I mean, and that's another show that I kind of poo-pooed on because I'm like, it's just going to be a cheap knockoff of the movie, even though it was still Taika Waititi behind him. I'm like, it's just going to be a cheap version of the movie, but it's so good. And what's Laszlo's character's name? Something Daytona. Guys in the live chat, help me out. Yeah, I'm human bartender. Something Daytona. What's the first name? Guys in the live chat, help me out here. Jackie, thank you. Dominic was the first one to put it in there. So was, and Ron H was quickly. I'm human bartender, Jackie Daytona. I was heartbroken when they didn't bring back Jackie Daytona for this most recent season. I hope we get to visit Jackie Daytona again. That was a great episode, by the way, with Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker himself in that. All right. He was on drugs and now I'm a unicorn. You're right. That was a terrific line. I love Nandor. All right. Remember, Bulldog writes, what do you think about getting Man of Steel 2 with Henry Cavill? Because I love the first Man of Steel. It has some of the greatest action in comic book movie history. I mean, listen, it's no surprise. Of course, that's what I want. I've been asking for another Henry Cavill Superman movie since the first one came out. You guys know, I think it's the most underrated comic book film ever made. I think it is a masterpiece movie of the genre, of the comic book genre. I love it. But as much as I want it, the franchise has to come first. And if they determine that they need to reboot this franchise in order for it to be successful, if they need to reboot this franchise for it to get close to its potential, then reboot it. I mean, I love Man of Steel, and I love Henry Cavill as Man of Steel, but the characters are there to serve the story, and the actors are there to serve the characters, and the franchise has got to come first. And we know my whole analogy about this, having this old beat up car in your driveway. You can go, oh, but man, that car has such a great steering wheel. Oh, this beat up Ford in our driveway has such an amazing steering wheel. You can't get rid of the car because we have a great steering wheel. It's just one part. It's just one piece of the puzzle, that steering wheel. Why did my lights go out? I think it's because motion detector. If I wave my arm, no, my lights just turned off. Look at that. Oh, whatever. So I get it. Superman is great. Man of Steel is great. Henry Cavill as Superman is great. But if they got to start from scratch, go ahead and start from scratch. Do what's best for the franchise. All right. Next up, where are we at? That was Romer Bulldog. Next up, we got Sam Fisher, who writes, I think that JLA movie should do Tower of Babel. I'm not quite sure of the storyline, Tower of Babel, so I can't really comment on that. I'm sure Rob would be able to comment on it, but unfortunately he's not here right now. And then the lights turn back on by themselves. Magic. Remember Bulldog writes, also, rewatch Shang-Chi and Ms. Marvel. Absolutely love both those projects. Those with the three, like, diamond standard projects out of Phase 4 are WandaVision, Ms. Marvel, and Shang-Chi. Those are the three diamond standard. I really, really, really enjoy Spider-Man No Way Home as well. I really like that movie a lot. But I don't rank it as high as Ms. Marvel, WandaVision, or Shang-Chi. I think Shang-Chi is a top 5 MCU movie of all time. And I know I think more highly of that movie than most of you do, and that's fair. But that's the impact that movie made on me. I love that movie so much, but I think those are the three standards. Ms. Marvel's fantastic. I cannot wait to revisit that character again. And who knows when we're going to see Shang-Chi again, but I'm looking forward to it when we do. All right. Next up, we've got, who was that? That was Remmer. Next up, we've got John Redcorn, who writes, why would Marvel make Eternals 2? It was the first negatively received MCU film. It wasn't beloved. Fans wished it made $400 million on a $200 million budget. I think there's a couple of reasons. When you are successful, and that's a fair question, John, when you are successful as the MCU is, you can afford to take a roundabout way to where you're going. In other words, when you are as successful as the MCU, you can afford some bumps in the road, right? When you're in the position that, say, DC was in, where everybody's half expecting your movies to fail before they even come out, you can't afford those bumps in the road. When you're MCU, you can. Kevin Feige loves that movie. Now, you can think about Eternals whatever you wish. I can think about it whatever I wish. You're right. I mean, a $400 million movie is practically a disaster if you're a Marvel movie. I mean, it's more than what Black Adam made, but still, if you're a Marvel movie, that's practically a disaster. It wasn't nearly as well received as the other MCU movies, stuff like that. But Kevin Feige loves that movie. He loves it. And he loves those characters. And he's been pretty clear that you go back. And I believe the second one will have more success. And by the way, we may not necessarily even get a second Eternals. We may just get the Eternals more interwoven with the MCU. Because remember, the end screen of that movie says the Eternals shall return. But it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to get an Eternals 2. I think we will, again, because Kevin Feige believes in it. Kevin Feige loves that movie. Kevin Feige believes it's important, all that kind of stuff. So if you're the MCU, yeah, you can take a slight bump in the road like that Eternal. I think it's better than most people think. And actually, you know what? Give me a quick second here. If I look up Eternals, let me see here. Eternals, Rotten Tomatoes. Let's go over here and take a look. So, I mean, the reality is it's got a 77% audience score. Now, even that is considered low on the low end for an MCU film. But still, a 77% audience score, which means I think most people would go back and check it out again. And I think there's a lot of upside to doing it. The story was great. The mythology in it's fantastic. You got wonderful characters in there. Who doesn't want to see Druig and Makari again? So yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons for doing it. I think there are a lot of reasons for doing it. All right. Good question though, John. Appreciate that. All right. Next up, Sam Fisher writes, John, I highly recommend One Piece. Nah, I'm never watching One Piece, just so you know. John, I highly recommend One Piece. It'll make you laugh, then cry, and then laugh about crying, and then cry about laughing. I'm never going to watch Red Piece. I'm not really a big anime guy. A lot of the classic movies I'm totally into, but a lot of the modern stuff, just not for me. And yeah, people have been explaining a bunch of stuff in it. It just doesn't sound like my cup of tea. By the way, that's not me bagging on One Piece, not at all. It just, clearly it's not a property that's for me. That's all. Nothing wrong with that. A lot of other people love it, and that's great, but it's clearly not something that's for me. All right. Casey Mack writes, I know Del Toro's Pinocchio is coming out tomorrow, but I'm going to wait till Tuesday because I will have a chance to see this in movie theaters. Oh, that's great. You know, if I had an opportunity to wait to see that movie in a movie theater, I would do it as well. But who am I kidding? If it's available tomorrow, I'm watching it tomorrow. because listen, it's literally getting Best Picture of the Year buzz. Like, it's getting buzz that it's not just going to be nominated for Best Animated Film. It is getting some buzz that it might be the fourth animated film in history to be nominated for Best Picture. Now, we don't know if that's true or not. We'll have to see it for ourselves, but that kind of hype gets me very, very excited. And it's Guillermo del Toro. So, listen, I salute you, sir. If you're going to wait to see it on the big screen the way movies should be seen, I salute you for that. All right. Let's see here. Next up, we've got Jord MCHG writes, so Jackie Chan confirmed today that Rush Hour 4 is still happening after no news in so long. What's your thoughts? Number 2, in my opinion, is one of the best action comedy films to be made, and it's criminally slept on. Listen, I've said for a long time, I don't like Rush Hour 1, and I really don't like Rush Hour 3, but I quite like Rush Hour 2. I wouldn't say it's one of the best action comedies of all time, but it's really good. I really like Rush Hour 2. That being said, I call bullshit. Listen, we talked about on the John Campea Show today. I still remember us doing a story back in AMC Movie Talk days about Chris Tucker's confirmed that they're doing Rush Hour 4. That was like 6 or 7 years ago. And they've said it 2 or 3 other times between then and now. They keep saying they're doing number 4. Look, and I'm not saying they're not. Let's be clear. I am not saying they're not going to do it. What I am saying is I'll believe it when I see it. Because this is a boy who cried wolf situation. They've been saying this for 7 years. Ever since I was on AMC, they've been saying this. So yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. I'll believe it when I see it, because they've said this thing so many times, and here we are 7 years later, and we're no closer to having it. So if it happens, great, it happens. But I'll believe it when I see it. All right. Thanks for that, Jord. Next up, Khalil Frederick writes, have you considered doing a Yellowstone after show? I can't, there's no point in doing a Yellowstone after show because it's already like 4 seasons in, and so I just won't. But what I am going to be doing, I'll let you guys know this. We are going to be doing a 1923 after show. The Harrison Ford, Helen Mirren spinoff, prequel spinoff. We are going to be doing an after show of that. So our upcoming next 2 after shows are going to be 1923 and The Last of Us. So those are the 2 upcoming after shows we have. So it's too late for us to do Yellowstone, unfortunately, even though it's my favorite show on television. But we will have 1923 and we will be doing Last of Us. All right. Thanks a lot for asking, Khalil. All right. Al Renshaw writes, although Last Christmas was great, the acting by Golding and Emilia Clarke was great, and it was still well made. Your thoughts on the movie? Oh yeah, although Last Christmas wasn't great. Yeah, I liked Golding in it. I'm not gonna lie, I really like Emilia Clarke. Of course, she was Daenerys in not Daenerys. She was Dany in why am I freezing on Game of Thrones? She was Dany in Game of Thrones. I like her, but I didn't love her in that movie. I honestly didn't think her performances was all that great. I think that was one of the weaker efforts of her career. I didn't think she was all that good. Golding, though, yeah, I thought he was pretty solid. That dude is a legitimate leading man. It's too bad that Snake Eyes was so terrible, though. It's really too bad. That movie was so bad. All right. Let's see. Next up, Taki75 writes, They persuaded Cavill to resign from Witcher and possibly decline a Marvel offer, only to tell him, never mind, we don't need you after all. Harsh. By the way, none of that is true, Taki. None of that is true. Nowhere, anywhere did Henry Cavill ever say that leaving Witcher had anything to do with being Superman again. A lot of people speculated that, and that was fair speculation, totally fair speculation. But nowhere was it ever said that he was going to be, that doing Superman had anything to do with him leaving Witcher. Nothing. Actors do 3, 4, 5 different projects a year all the time. So never did Henry Cavill say that. Also, all these rumors going around that Henry Cavill's about to join the MCU, that was all bullshit. None of that was ever true. So yeah, this doesn't affect anything. He did not leave Witcher, at least not according to Henry Cavill. He never said at all that he left Witcher because of Superman. Never happened. So doesn't necessarily mean that that's harsh at all. Okay. Let's see. Where are we at next here? That was Taiki. JW writes, would love Star Wars special presentations on Disney Plus. I don't know. I mean, the thing about the difference between Star Wars and Marvel is that Marvel, you have, decades and decades and decades and decades and decades and decades and decades of stories and characters and all that kind of stuff. Star Wars doesn't really have that. John, the expanded universe. 90% of the expanded universe stuff was garbage. And I say that as a lifelong Star Wars fan who read almost everything in the expanded universe. 90% of it was garbage. And the average people don't know about it anyway. So I don't know that I'd be all that excited for Star Wars special presentations. You know what we got when we had Star Wars special presentations? Star Wars, the holiday special. That's what we got. Yeah, I gotta be honest with you, brother, JW. I don't think I would be excited for it. Who knows? Maybe it could be great, but I wouldn't personally be excited for it. I think they fit better with Marvel stuff than they do with Star Wars stuff, but that's that. All right. The Everything Entertainment sends in a $20 super chat. Thank you, man. And he writes in, if The Last of Us is as good as it looks, do you think it could be the X-Men 2000 of video game adaptations? Movies like Uncharted, Warcraft, and the Halo series were steps in the right direction, but not amazing. So what he's saying is, the X-Men, the original X-Men movie was the movie that opened up the golden era of comic book films. Now, there will be some people that say it was Blade, but it wasn't Blade. Like a lot of big producers, including the producer of the Dark Knight series and one of the producers on a couple of the other things, said that it was that X-Men movie that made the studio sit up and go, wait a minute, we can make movies like that? Because up until that point, comic book movies are seen as a certain way. It was when that first X-Men movie came out. When that movie opens with a scene at the in the Nazi death camps, right? And a young boy being torn away from his mother. I mean, when they did that, that is the movie that the producer of the Dark Knight trilogy and several other producers says that was the moment that Hollywood studios went, this is a new era of comic book films. It was that movie that launched it all. If The Last of Us is as good as it looks, and, I still see some people in the live chat saying, but Blade was before X-Men. Yes, but Blade did not make Hollywood say that. Blade did not make the producers go, oh, we can make movies like that. That's not the movie that did it. They all say it was the X-Men movie that did it. So yes, Blade came out first, but Blade didn't change anything. It was and I love the Blade movies, especially Blade 2. I love Blade 2, but the Blade movie didn't change anything. It was the X-Men film that changed things. Anyway, could Last of Us be that? Maybe. I mean, we've already had things that were steps in the right direction, right? The Sonic movie was definitely a good step in the right direction. It looks like this Mario movie could actually be pretty good. Fingers crossed for that at any rate. So who knows? Maybe The Last of Us will be the property that comes out and blows the doors open for a new era of video game to live narrative adaptation excellence. Fingers crossed, man. Fingers crossed. I was kind of hoping World of Warcraft would be that, or Assassin's Creed would be that, and we also have that turned out. All right. Great question, man. Casey Mack writes, I hope movies like Megan and Cocaine Bear can continue the success horror had in 2022. I do look at Smile. Like, what ultimately did Smile end up with here? Let me just look this up here. Smile, what am I looking for? Box office. Okay. So if we're looking, nope, that's not what I want. That's what I want. Okay. So if we go over here to Smile, look at this. This movie, I think, was made for less than $20 million. I think. $215 million this movie made at the box office. $215 million. On I think a sub $20 million budget. Infeliz in the live chat is saying $17 million budget. Look at that. I mean, this is just the type of stuff that Blumhouse has exhibited before in the past with the successes they've had. So I would love it. Like if Megan and Cocaine Bear, how crazy was that Cocaine Bear trailer? Come on, guys. I think I would love to see movies like this always get made. Like I love my big blockbusters. I love my $200 million movies. Yes. But I love seeing remember Elizabeth Moss's The Invisible Man? They made that movie for $8 million. $8 million. Hold on a second. Invisible. How much did Invisible Man make at the box office? Hold on a second. $144 million. That's a good movie too, by the way. That, if you guys did not see The Invisible Man, that's a good movie. Made it for $8 million, made $144 million. Absolutely incredible. Love it. Love it. I want to keep seeing movies like these. Little movies get these big successes. I love seeing stuff like that. All right. Next up, where are we at? That was Casey Mack. Next, we got Gabriel, who writes, have you seen Jeffrey Dahmer on Netflix? No, I started watching one episode and I wasn't able to continue, and just schedule thing wise, but I never got back on it. You know, by the time, here's the thing, it's like a Netflix thing. It all drops at once. And after a few days pass, that's the thing with these Netflix programs and why we never do after shows or anything for Netflix, is that they have this approach where they drop it all at once. And if you're not on it right away, it's too late. So since it was too late for me to talk about it on the channel or anything like that, I just thought, well, there's no point in me even watching it. I might as well talk about other things now. So yeah. So no, I've never did get around to seeing it. But man, that massive success for Netflix, dude. Massive success. All right. Tina Fanatic writes, any affordable hotel and or restaurant recommendations near Disneyland? Planning a trip from Seattle and would love to hear from a local viewer for 5 years. Thanks to my partner. Thanks, and bring on the filthy. Well, look, okay, so I will try not to go on to my typical rant about Disneyland because fuck Disneyland. And fuck Disney. I pretty much hate Disney in general, although there's a lot of stuff that they put out that I really do quite enjoy, but you know, fuck Disney. I hate that company. Anyway, my wife is still a big Disneyland fan. My wife still has her Disneyland annual pass. Now, I'm not going to go into the whole thing again, but Disneyland really screwed me over once, and it's never good to financially screw over an Italian. We hold on to that shit. We hold those grudges. When it's money, when you screw an Italian out of money, we hold on to those grudges tight. We can be very bitter about that for a very long time. So yeah, but okay. That being said, yeah, there are definitely don't stay at the park, because in the park, you're going to be paying exorbitant prices. There are definitely smaller hotels around Disneyland in Anaheim. And here's the key. The further away from the park that you stay, because there's a lot of hotels in Anaheim, and the further you get away from the park itself, the cheaper and cheaper and the more available those prices would be. So I would say if you don't mind grabbing an Uber every day to go into the park, I would say try to get 2 or 3 miles away from the park. You're probably going to get your best bang for your buck. And Anaheim's a big major city. Every restaurant you can imagine is there. So there are definitely Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles is there. That's one of my favorite places to eat in Anaheim or in Hollywood. Those stuff there. So yeah, there are a lot of good options. I would just say try to stay a little bit further away from the park. Otherwise you're going to get fleeced. You're going to get fleeced a lot. And I hope, despite the fact that I hate Disneyland, don't let that deter you. I hope you and your partner have a fantastic time. All right. Next up, Al Renshaw writes, saw random story about a pig that drank 18 beers and got drunk and then got into a physical altercation with a cow. True story, and anything is possible. Hey, listen, if anything gets inebriated and starts to lose senses of judgment like human beings do, why not? I could totally see that happen. Maybe they should make a movie out of it, Al. All right. Next up, Taff3 Full writes, I don't mind the alleged DCU reboot, nor do I mind if they opt to keep the iteration as currently constructed. What I care more about is consistency, transparency, and them having a clear plan for DC. Oh, I absolutely agree. Now, right now, there's nothing for them to be transparent about, right? They're literally putting their plan together right now. Right now is when they're putting their plan together. Consistency, yes. If they reboot, then I want them to build from that square one, from ground zero, and be consistent moving forward. once you restart and reboot, that is. And having a clear plan. I mean, that's obviously what James Gunn and Peter Safran have been working very hard on, to put together a clear vision about what they want the DCU to be, that they can build in such a way that it'll have fan, critic, box office support, build in such a way that you can have a consistency about it moving forward. That's the plan. But it's like Mike Tyson said, man, everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth. So they can come up with a great plan, and let's see if it works. That's where it's going to really come down to. You can come up with all the plans in the world. Does it work? And are you able to be flexible enough that as you're noticing certain things working better than other things and certain things not working so well, are you able to pivot a little bit and make minor corrections without panicking and going, oh my gosh, this one movie didn't work out so well, let's change our entire plan, right? That's what Warner Brothers used to do a lot. Because not everything's going to go according to plan, but can you create a great plan, have a vision, and then have the flexibility to make minor little adjustments as you move forward to keep everything on track. And it's going to take us a couple of years to find out if that's what they're able to do, but it's got to start with rebooting it and getting a clean slate right now. Anyway, good thoughts there, Tateful. All right, next up. Jonathan Cahoon writes, with the DCU being rebooted, does that make next year's Shazam 2 and the Flash movies ultimately pointless? Thanks. Only if you consider Top Gun Maverick pointless. So my question would be, do you think Top Gun Maverick was pointless? Because it's not going to have a sequel, right? We talked about this morning on the John Campea Show. We as movie fans, and we're all guilty of it. We're all guilty of it. Me, you, everybody watching this video, we're all guilty of this. This notion of, but it's in a connected cinematic universe. If it's not all interconnected and goes on forever, then there's no reason for it. No, those movies, Shazam 2, Fury of the Gods, the Flash movie, we go to those movies for those movies to be good and for those movies to be entertaining and for those movies to give us a great experience, right? Who cares if there's another one that comes after it? Who cares? One of the examples I brought up was Goodfellas today. Some people think Goodfellas, it's not. The Godfather is the greatest gangster film of all time, but some people think Goodfellas is, like if somebody recommends, hey, you should watch Goodfellas. Does it have a sequel? No. Well, then what's the point? It's pointless to watch it. It doesn't go anywhere. If it doesn't go anywhere after the end credits, what's the point in watching it? Well, you watch it because it's a great movie. That's why we watch movies, to have great experiences. So no, this whole notion of, well, then what's the point of watching Shazam 2? Well, because we want to watch a good movie. Whether or not it has, I like what Rob said today. Rob put it really, really well on the John Campea Show today. Rob said on the show, he goes, I have never once gone into a movie thinking about what comes next. I've always gone into my movie only focused on the movie I'm there to watch. And that same thing should apply to Shazam 2, to The Flash. If they are rebooting it, okay, they're rebooting it. Let's see how these movies are. Let's see if they give us good, fun, entertaining movies. That's all that matters. That's all that matters. So, yes, they are not ultimately pointless unless you consider Goodfellas to be pointless, or unless you consider Top Gun Maverick to be pointless, or unless you consider any of the best picture winners in history to be pointless movies. I mean, we got to get out of this mindset that comic book movies only have any value in terms of where they fit into some bigger shared cinematic universe. We got to get out of that mindset. Got to get out of that mindset. Anyway, thanks for writing that in, Jonathan. Appreciate you sending that in. All right, Spencer Smothers writes, I think Feige had planned to handle the extra Phase 4 content by having Gunn help produce, but then he was fired and it all fell back on Feige's shoulders. I mean, there was some of that was true, but remember, they always said that James Gunn was going to be assisting. He was kind of going to be overlooking the intergalactic side of things, right? And how many of those were there really? You had Eternals, but 95% of Eternals was just Earth-based. So I don't even know James Gunn would have been overseeing that. I'm not really sure. I mean, listen, when they fired James Gunn initially, which was a big mistake on Disney's part, but one of Alan Horn's very, very, very few mistakes. But when they fired James Gunn initially, he was kind of becoming Kevin Feige's right-hand man when it came to the intergalactic side of the MCU, but there hasn't really been a lot of that. So I don't know how much of an impact that had. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying I don't know. I don't know how much of an impact that really would have had on the MCU Phase 4. But who knows? Maybe it was a big part. Okay, next up. Raymond Verrata writes, remembering Bob McGrath of Sesame Street, 21 Jump Street star Holly Robinson, Pete, made a tribute to the original Sesame Street actors. Her dad is the original Gordon. Oh, wow. Yeah, so for those of you who didn't hear, Bob from Sesame Street, if you're anywhere near my age, actually any age, because he continued to play Bob right up until a few years ago. He played Bob for like 50 years. I grew up with Bob on Sesame Street. And he passed away recently. He was in his 90s, I believe. But I mean, I just remember him going, these are the people in your neighborhood, in your neighborhood, in your neighborhood, right? I mean, these life lessons that we got on Sesame Street and stuff like that. It was really heartbreaking. I still remember like years ago when we heard that Mr. Hooper had died. That hit me pretty hard. And then I think Luis died a number of years ago. And Bob, of course, died, but he was in his 90s. And what a legacy. What a legacy that he leaves behind with his work on Sesame Street. All right. Let's keep going here. Next up, thanks for that, Raymond. Appreciate that. My Comic Planet writes, it's incredible how open and transparent Gunn has been on social media. I don't think there's a more accessible movie executive than him, but could this come back to bite him at some point? You know what? Yes. I actually said, I remember we were just getting ready to start the show today when James Gunn put those tweets out addressing all the reports about, Wonder Woman 3 being canceled and the rebooting of the DCU and all that kind of stuff. And it was about 5 minutes before the show started, and Rob and I were talking about how incredibly accessible he is. He's always been very, very active on social media, blah, blah, blah. But one of the things I said, if I ever get to interview James again, I will probably give him this one little bit of advice, which would be, you can't, as a studio head, you can't get involved in the habit of responding to reports and rumors on social media. Because if you do, that's going to become your full-time job. Because what's going to happen is you're going to get hundreds of people starting fake rumors and reports just to see if they can get James Gunn to respond to them on social media. Maybe once in a while there's something to respond to, but honestly, I think, and I know people love how active James Gunn is in social media, and so am I, but I think when it comes to just responding to every report and every rumor and all that kind of stuff that's out there, I think that's something he's going to have to learn to not do. That he's just going to have to learn to just bite your tongue and say, let them report whatever they want to report. Let whatever rumor out there be whatever rumor that's out there. I can't use my time and my energy being on Twitter and monitoring Twitter 24/7, because eventually you're going to get a lot of these bullshit reports that'll come out there just to try to get a reaction out of James Gunn. And I think that's something he's going to have to learn moving forward, but he'll get there. He's brand new at being the studio head thing. He's going to be great. He's going to be great. I have so excited that he's going to be running DC, man. It's just crazy. All right. Let's see. JT Hiskey writes, John, when are you doing Cameo again? Oh my God, Cameo. I haven't done that in forever. So you guys know Cameo. It's a great app actually, where a whole bunch of celebrities are on Cameo, and you can go and, pay a certain amount of money and you can get one of your favorite celebrities to send a video message to somebody for them, right? It's a great service. I love it. So I got the people at Cameo reached out to me and they convinced me to get on Cameo too. So I got on Cameo and I did a few cameos. Here was the problem though. I got so busy because my job is busy, but I got so busy that what happened was, if you don't respond to a cameo relatively quickly, they cancel the order and they refund people. And I started feeling really guilty because I was just too busy, and I started to get all these cameos building up. And then a bunch of them got canceled. Like the Cameo would cancel those things and refund people. And I just felt bad that people were like doing me the honor of paying for me to send somebody a video message, but I just never got around to it. And I just said, I remember I talked to Ann about it and I said, people deserve better than that. People who are following me and watch, they deserve better than that. I can't do this. So I got off of Cameo. So I don't think I'll be returning to Cameo because again, I don't want to just disappoint people. I just don't want to disappoint people. So, and I hate messing up. God, I hate messing up. I hate messing up. And when I'm on Cameo and I say, hey, yeah, send in, I can't remember what I think I was only charging like $10 or $15 in Cameo. I can't even remember what it was. Send in $50 and I'll record a video message. Yay! And then not do it. That's not good. That's unacceptable. And so that's when I talked to Anson. You know what? I think I should probably just not be on here at all because I'm just letting people down. And I hate it when I do that. I absolutely hate it. So I probably won't be back on Cameo, but you never know. Things change. Who knows? We'll see what happens. All right. Thanks for the question, man. All right. Next up, we've got Mickey Shuey, who writes, John, what do you make of the comments by Netflix's CEO about staying away from live sports because they don't want to waste the money? Many other streaming services are going big with sports. Could Netflix be left behind? Yes. Now, here's what I would say about that. And by the way, Mickey sent like a $20 super chat. Thank you so much for that, Mickey. If streaming was staying the same, where you have subscribers, that's it, that's how you make your money on your subscribers, then getting into live sports doesn't make a lot of sense, right? Because you're going to be spending a lot of money, but you're not going to be making a lot of money off it. But here's where I think Netflix is making a mistake. Streaming is not staying the same. Streaming is now becoming more and more like cable television, where they actually have ad-supported tiers now. That means if you get people watching, you're making money on ad revenue. And nothing makes more money on ad revenue than sports. Go look it up. Nothing makes more money in ad revenue in broadcasting than sports. And if Netflix is doing a ad-supported tier, then not getting involved in sports, that's a mistake. I mean, because I would kind of challenge it. Well, why are you doing an ad-supported tier if you're not going to take advantage of the ads and do the type of content that generates the most and demands the most amount of money from advertisers than live sports? So, yeah, again, if it was a year ago, before all this talk about ad-supported tiers, I would say, I get it. I get why they're not going to get into sports. But if you're going to do an ad-supported tier, I think it's folly. I think it is folly to not get into the sports. All right, guys, listen. We're not quite done here. We still have a few more to go, but we are going to take a second here and take a little bit break. I need to refill my drink, get up, stretch my legs, rest my voice box here for just a moment, give you guys a chance to run and use the bathroom, talk amongst yourselves. So we're going to take a little bit of a break here for just a moment, but don't go anywhere, guys. We will be right back. All right, everybody, and we are back. Thank you for your patience and indulgence as I took a little bit of a break there. Now, before we keep going on with the guys, I totally forgot that we need to stop, pause for just a moment, and thank one of the sponsors of this video, this episode of Open Mic, our friends at MANSCAPED. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of this video, MANSCAPED. This holiday season, I'll be giving thanks to our friends over at MANSCAPED. Everyone loves turkey and stuffing, but you'll be looking like dessert with the help of MANSCAPED's Performance Package 4.0. The leaders in below-the-waist grooming have blessed you with the ultimate Thanksgiving dinner topic. Tell your in-laws about your new cutting-edge ball trimmer and gift yourself or the man in your life the ultimate men's hygiene bundle. Trim up your pumpkins by going to manscaped.com and use the code CAMPEA for free shipping and 20% off. And this year I am so thankful for Manscaped because like most of you guys, I used to use Neanderthalic dark age methods to trim my balls. Not anymore, thanks to Manscaped. It's time for all of us to give thanks to Manscaped Performance Package 4.0, or as I like to call it, the perfect package for your package. Inside, you'll find their Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, Crop Preserver ball deodorant, Crop Reviver toner, Performance boxer briefs, and a travel bag to hold all your goodies. The heart of the package, their Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology. So get 20% off and free shipping with the code CAMPEA at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use the promo code CAMPEA. Be thankful this holiday season for the best gift of all from Manscaped, your balls. And thank you to our friends at Manscaped for keeping the balls shiny and smooth and for sponsoring this episode of Open Mic. All right, guys, we got a bunch of questions to finish off here with, so let's get back into it and bring this thing home. We're going to continue things off here with Luke1234, who writes, DC rebooted to the Batman Beyond verse. No, there's no chance in hell they're doing that. Zero chance. There is a chance a Batman Beyond happens, but rebooting to the Batman Beyond verse, that would be financial suicide. That would fail badly. All right, My Comic Planet writes, Twitter Blue will now reportedly cost $11 per month. Geez, at this rate, it'll be $20 by next year. There is such a thing as diminishing returns, Mr. Musk. Listen, they have so screwed up things over there right now. Like, nobody knows who's real and who's not on there. There's been a whole bunch of stories about major corporations being impersonated and they've got the blue check mark, even though they're fake accounts. Did you see that one thing where one company even had its entire, there was this pharmaceutical company that somebody made a fake Twitter account, gave themselves the blue check mark because they paid the $8 for it. And they said, we are pleased to announce that moving forward, we're going to be making insulin for free. That's funny, but their stock price dove. It cost a lot of people a lot of money. People who are shareholders, just average people at home who bought stocks in the company. It hurt a lot of people very, very badly, all because of this whole checkmark thing. It's an absolute fucking mess, the thing they're doing over there. But at any rate. All right. Next up, I still love Elon's cars, though. Love Elon's cars. All right. Next up, we got Everything Entertainment, who super chats in like $20. Thank you, Everything Entertainment, who writes, I went to LA for my birthday earlier this week, nice, and did the WB Studio Tour. I love the WB Studio Tour. And oh my, this is a must for any film fan. So much fun and interesting things. And our tour even got to meet the Abbott Elementary cast. Oh, that's awesome, especially when you can be... I remember the first time I took the WB tour, we got to go to the set and they were actually shooting Two Broke Girls. Now, that was a show I didn't even really watch. But obviously, you had the one girl from Thor who was in it and all that kind of stuff. It was really a lot of fun. You get to see so much of the history and you get to see all the behind the scenes stuff. If you're ever in LA, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you take Everything Entertainment's, follow his lead and do the WB tour. It is a lot of fun if you're a film and TV fan. Like, you'll get an absolute lot out of it. Thanks for sharing your experience, Everything, man. That means a lot. All right. Next up, My Comic Planet writes, George R.R. Martin says he has around 500 pages left until he finishes The Winds of Winter. But we've heard this before. I'll believe it when I see it. Yeah. I just don't know what to say about George R.R. Martin. Game of Thrones became this big success and he just decided, and who can blame him? He just decided to enjoy the celebrity of it all. I mean, fans of the book series, I'm not one of the readers of the novels, but fans of the book series have been waiting for this for a long, long, long time. So I'm with you, man. It's kind of like the Rush Hour 4 thing. I'll believe it when I see it. I mean, maybe get done, but at this point, man, I'll believe it when I see it. All right. Dumbledore writes, remember the Hollywood Reporter report on Walter Hamada wanting to do Crisis on Infinite Earths? Thank goodness they're rebooting the DCU instead. Because listen, that was partly because so many fans were screaming for a Crisis on Infinite Earths, right? They tried to do it on the CW verse. That was a total disaster. And they wanted to do a movie version of it because a lot of the fans were screaming for it. And I'm sure they probably had a pretty neat idea about it. But again, at this point, it's just the damage has been done to the DCU. It's time to move on from it, I think. And ultimately, we'll see what James Gunn and Peter Safran are doing with it. But I think it is time to reboot it and give everything a fresh start. Get rid of all the baggage and just have a fresh start. All right. Alex Von Gollum writes, one of two. I am very torn about The Fabelmans. I think it's solid, but not great. It has pacing issues, and I don't feel the writers knew what the movie was, knew what the movie was about. It has masterful moments, example, Judd Hirsch's, great editing. I cannot wait to see and hear John's opinion after he sees it. Yeah, and look, it's basically, this is a big, big passion project for Steven Spielberg. He wanted to make a movie about his mom. And despite the fact that it's called The Fabelmans, this movie could have just been called The Spielbergs. It's based on his life and his family growing up. And listen, all film is subjective. Not everybody's going to love everything. Every movie that comes out, no matter how good or bad it is going to have people that like it and some people that it doesn't work for. But it is getting a lot of Best Picture buzz. There's a lot of people saying it's the front runner for Best Picture. Again, I haven't seen it yet myself. I can't wait as well, Alex, to finally see it for myself and give my thoughts. All right. Next up, Miguel Seja writes, I believe Gal's tweet was in reference to a reboot. She did say next chapter. I also can't see Gunn recasting Soups after getting us excited. Absolutely he can. And I guarantee you, listen, when you reboot, you reboot. When she said next chapter, she was saying that around when Patty Jenkins was submitting the treatment for the new Wonder Woman. It wasn't for, they're not going to keep Gal Gadot. I'll tell you that right now. Let me put it this way. I will be shocked. And I've been shocked before. Let's be honest. I've been shocked before. I will be insanely shocked. They are not going to keep Gal Gadot. If you're going to then what's the point of rebooting? If you're just going to keep Gal Gadot, who quite frankly is not that strong of an actress. I've come to really like Gal Gadot. I've seen a lot of interviews with her. I think she seems like an absolutely delightful person, but she is not that strong of an actress. She cannot carry a movie. And if you just keep the cast, then you're bringing all the baggage. The perception from the average moviegoer is going to be, oh, it's the same old DCEU. There's no way they're keeping her. There's no way they're keeping her. I think she is done as Wonder Woman. Look, we might still see her. And there's 1,001 Corpses. There's a report saying that she's staying, John. And there was a report that Henry Cavill was going to be joining the MCU. Yeah, I don't believe that at all. And I heard the things and I saw the things saying that Warner Brothers may want to keep her as Wonder Woman, all that kind of stuff. I don't buy it. Again, to me, it's the exact same thing. And again, we'll find out. David Zaslav has not called me. Let me be very, very clear. This is just me speaking as another fan, speculating just like any other fan. Nobody at Warner Brothers gave me a call and told me blah, blah, blah. Let's be very, very clear that I'm simply giving you my interpretation of things. All right. And many times I'm right. Sometimes I'm wrong. Just like the rest of you. Many times you're right. Many times you're wrong. But I don't buy it. I don't buy it for one single second, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Listen, we are all of this talk about the Wonder Woman cancellation, about Jason Momoa not being Aquaman anymore, about Man of Steel 2 being canceled, about the full reboot of the DCEU, all this stuff. All of this is coming from one report from the Hollywood Reporter. Now, James Gunn has gotten on Twitter and said, hey, some of that report is true. Some of it is half true. Some of it isn't true yet. I mean, so we've we've got a lot to find out. We are all basing, all of us, including me and Rob and everybody else, we are all basing all of our speculation on very, very limited information right now, right? And that's all we can do as movie fans. You, me, all of us. The only thing we can do is base our opinions and speculations on what information is available right now. Now, as more information becomes available, as James Gunn and Peter Safran and maybe David Zaslav start to reveal more moving forward, well, then we'll adapt our speculation, we'll adapt our guesses, we'll adapt our opinions as we get more information. But it's important for us to all keep in mind amongst all this discussion that we are basing all of our, like you as fans, me as a fan, we're basing all of our stuff off of very little information that's been given so far. And we should. I mean, that's all we have to work with, so let's all discuss it. But let's see what happens when James Gunn comes out and gives us more information, and then we'll get a better idea where we're at right now. Right now, it's all in the speculation stage. But if they do a hard reboot, and we don't know they are, if they do a hard reboot, there's no way they keep Gal Gadot. No way. But they may not do a hard reboot. They might do something that's a half measure. Maybe they reboot the story, but they're going to keep the events of Suicide Squad canon. They're going to keep Blue Beetle as canon. I mean, if that's the case, well, then more things become possibilities, right? More things become possibilities. What I'm saying right now, strictly speculation on my part, is that if it is a hard reboot, if it's a hard reboot, and we don't know that it is, but if it's a hard reboot, there's no way they keep Gal Gadot. There's no way they keep Ben Affleck. There's no way they keep Henry Cavill, my beloved Henry. There's no way they keep him either. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Okay, let's see what the mad genius mind of James Gunn comes up with. All right. Let's see here. Where were we? All right. Tucker Flynn writes, kind of two questions. Do you think Gunn and Safran will use Flash to reboot DC? No. And if not, how long should we expect to wait for the changes to be evident in the content? Well, remember, The Flash was made before James Gunn came on. Blue Beetle was made before James Gunn came on. Aquaman 2 was made before James Gunn came on. So we're going to have to get all, Shazam! Fury of the Gods was made before James Gunn came on. We're going to have to get all of that content in our rearview mirror first. So we are still, I don't think we're years away from finding out what James Gunn and Peter Safran are doing, but we are years away from seeing it. We're years away from actually seeing it. But we could find, listen, James Gunn and Peter Safran are apparently meeting with David Zaslav next week to lay out their full plan, and we may start hearing reports coming out from that. So we might find out soon, but until we actually tangibly see the results, we're years away. We're probably a couple of years away still, but who knows? We'll have to wait and see. All right. Thanks for that, Alex. Oh, no, that was Tucker Flynn. Okay, next up. Really not that fun, he writes. Favorite Christmas memory, love the show. I mean, all my favorite Christmas memories about getting up Christmas morning, going down. Like the one thing we were allowed to do as kids, I think a lot of families are like this, is that we were allowed to open our stockings before mom and dad got up. And so, and that's a tradition that continues to this day. Even when I go home for Christmas, we all go into our stockings before mom and dad get up. And my dad would make a big breakfast every Christmas morning. He'd make like piles of eggs and bacon and toast and all, like he would just make this huge breakfast spread. But yeah, those are my favorite memories of Christmas. All right. Thanks for asking, man. All right. Next up, we've got Rampage Predacon who writes, hey, John, are you watching this weekend's UFC? What are your thoughts on the main event? Yeah. So yes, I am. It's UFC 282. And we got Jan back in the title picture, former champion. Now, all of a sudden, because of the injury, and Glover backed out of the fight because that's not who he was preparing to fight. And now we got this whole new vacated light heavyweight title, a new main event. I think it's going to be an awesome fight. I think it's going to be awesome. So yes, damn right, I'm going to be sitting my ass down to watch the UFC this weekend. It looks really good. Won't be as good as the last UFC. That last UFC was incredible, but I am very much looking forward to this one. A lot of drama going on behind the scenes there. All right. Fangblaze71 writes, my guess is that the High Evolutionary is the one who made Rocket Raccoon and ran all the tests on him. Maybe. I mean, Rob was talking about that. Oh God, when was it? It was before Halloween. Rob was talking about that a little bit. Rob also laid out a pretty interesting roadmap about how there are a couple of other characters that could be behind that. I'm trying to remember who exactly he referenced, but High Evolutionary is one of them. But I don't know if they're going to bring High Evolutionary into Guardians 3. I'm not saying they're not. I'm saying I don't know. I don't know. So we'll have to see there. But clearly, I think they're going to get into that story. All right. Ronnie S. writes, it will be sad to see so many DC characters go. Embarrassing for Henry Cavill, The Rock, Gal Gadot. They won't ever work for WB again. Nope, that's not true at all. That's not true at all. Listen, it's like we just saw with the two directors of Batgirl, right? Like that was potentially embarrassing. They made an entire movie that just wasn't going to get released. And yet they're still willing to work with Warner Brothers again. It's just business. All these actors know this. It's just business. And why would they refuse? Here's the thing. Why would they? Warner Brothers made Henry Cavill a star. Warner Brothers made Henry Cavill a star. Henry Cavill was already like a very excellent actor and all this kind of stuff, but it was the role of Superman that made him a star. And he got to play Superman how many times? And okay, so now we're not going to make them anymore. All right. Henry Cavill will still work with Warner Brothers forever. I don't think Warner Brothers really cares if they work with Gal Gadot anymore moving forward. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson will work with Warner Brothers again moving forward. They let him listen, they gave him all sorts of control over his Black Adam movie. Remember, the original plan that Warner Brothers had for Black Adam was to have him as the villain character in Shazam. It was Dwayne Johnson who convinced them to split him off, make him his own separate movie. They gave him tons of control, not all the control, but they gave him tons of control over that, and they brought his movie to market. Okay, didn't work. It's business. And then you move on. Like a lot of people think that because you and I, we often act like 5-year-old children. I admit we do. That we think movie stars all act like 5-year-olds. Nah, this is business. Some projects go, what do you think is going to get somebody upset more? That they got to play a role and have a whole bunch of success and make millions of dollars and then it comes to an end? Or people who got turned down for a role and never got to make a movie with them in the first place? I guarantee you that there is a lot of these people love working with Warner Brothers, will absolutely continue to work with Warner Brothers. And what do you mean? Poor Henry Cavill. Henry Cavill got to play Superman. He got to play Superman in a bunch of movies and made millions of dollars. Whereas there's 10,000 other actors in Hollywood right now who never got a role like that. Poor Henry Cavill. And I say that as a huge Henry Cavill stan, by the way. Massive Henry Cavill fan. But oh, boo-hoo, poor Henry Cavill. He made millions of dollars and got to be a global superstar. Oh, boo-hoo, Henry Cavill. Now, you ain't going to see Henry Cavill going, oh, boo-hoo, poor me. Henry Cavill will go, you know what? Playing Superman was the honor of my life. It was a great experience. You think he would have got the Witcher role if it wasn't for Superman? Probably not. So, and at the end of the day, it's business. Hey, we've got this project. You're part of it. Hey, we're changing directions with our project. We don't need you on it anymore. It's just business, guys. It's just business. The Batgirl thing was different. You know, that was a movie that they made thinking it was going to get released and all this kind of stuff. And listen, and I agree with Warner Brothers' decision not to release it, but I could absolutely see feelings being more hurt because that movie never came out. Like Leslie Grace never got to be seen as Batgirl. What do you think is worse? That or Henry Cavill, who did get to play Superman, become a global superstar, make millions of dollars, had other opportunities open up for him because he was Superman. Who do you think got it worse there? Clearly Leslie Grace got it worse, but that's just my opinion on it. Just my take. All right. Next up. We've got Bright writes, the DC reboot will be great for Marvel as well. If the MCU decides to reboot after Secret Wars, they can see what worked for Warner Brothers and what didn't. Love you. Yeah, listen, a lot of people forget, because of all the success that Marvel has had, at some point, Marvel will have to reboot. Now, I ain't saying it's in 2 years or in 4 years or in 5 years. I'm not saying maybe it is, maybe it's not. But at some point, even the MCU is going to have to reboot. And you're kind of right. They're going to be able to sit back and say, okay, let's see how Warner Brothers handles it. Let's see what works. Let's see what doesn't work. And we'll know what mistakes to avoid and what things to do when we ultimately decide to reboot our universe. Because at some point, they're going to have to do that. At some point, it's going to happen. And yeah, they could very well benefit from this. We'll see how that goes. All right. Thanks for that, Bright. Next up, Alex Von Gollum writes, we'll be watching Empire on Light. I think you mean of Light. Empire of Light tonight. Despite Rotten Tomatoes being in the 40s, Roger Deakins is the cinematographer. I can't wait. Look, you just look at the trailers, right? I'm going to see if I can pull this up here. Empire of Light. You just look at the trailers for that movie, man. That thing looked amazing. Cinematography wise, that thing looks absolutely amazing. I actually got invited to the premiere. But you guys know, pull this up here. There's my invitation to the premiere to go to Empire of Light. But as you guys know, some of you know, I made the decision a couple of months ago that I am no longer accepting. I told all the studios to take me off their press lists. And I made the decision a few months ago, for some of you who might have missed this, that I no longer go to any press screenings. I no longer go to any premieres. I no longer do any of that stuff. I just realized I don't need it. I don't need it. So, but I gotta say, Empire of Light is one of those movies that I really had to think hard about that one, because you got Olivia Colman in there, Toby Jones, Academy Award winner Colin Firth is in there. A lot of it looked really good, but yeah, you're right. The reception for it has not been all that good, but I think you're 100% right. It still might be worth going to see it just because Roger Deakins is the DP on it. So it's visually going to be beautiful. It's visually going to be absolutely beautiful. All right. Next up, that was Alex Von Gollum. Big Mouth Stan writes, why is it that lately only comic book and horror movies make all the big bucks? What happened to movies like Titanic that just made $1 billion as well? What movies like Titanic that just made $1 billion as well? What movies like Titanic? Titanic was like an oddity. It is not common for films to make $1 billion. It's not like there have been 300 films in cinematic history that have made $1 billion. And by the way, what about Top Gun Maverick? Top Gun Maverick is the number one box, as of right now, Top Gun Maverick is the number one box office film of the year. It's not a comic book movie and it's not a horror movie. I can't think of a horror movie that made $1 billion. Maybe there is. I'm just saying I can't think of one off the top of my head. But yeah, I mean, I look, a lot of movies can make a lot of money, but the $1 billion thing is a rarity. It's a rarity. Like that's got to be something that pulls together and comes out and only like maybe a couple a year make $1 billion at the box office. So yeah, $1 billion can't become the standard. Too many people, Rob brings this up all the time and I agree with him. We as film fans, we've come to start to think like, oh, $1 billion is now the floor, right? That's how much a movie needs to make for us to think that movie was successful. And that's totally ass backwards thinking. We shouldn't think like that at all, but we get caught in that sometimes. That's just my thought. All right. Thanks for writing that in, Big Mouth Stan. Appreciate that, man. Dr. Bright writes, hey, John, you good? I'm very good, thank you. Haven't seen today's show yet, but there's no way that Henry is out again after all that happened to bring him back, right? Absolutely he can be out. Listen, there is a new sheriff in town. It's James Gunn, and he has been tasked with coming up with a plan 8 to 10 year plan for the roadmap for DC. And if what they feel the best plan is involves rebooting and it doesn't involve Henry Cavill Superman, then he's got to go. And there's no way somebody like James Gunn takes that job. There's no way James Gunn and Peter Safran take that job unless they're told. Because I guarantee you, when James Gunn was talking to Peter or to David Zaslav about this job, one of the absolute questions James Gunn asked was, am I actually going to be able to make the decisions for DC? Now, of course, he's going to have a boss, David Zaslav, just like Kevin Feige had a boss in the great Alan Horn and Bob Iger. Of course. But those bosses, Alan Horn and Bob Iger, gave Kevin Feige 99% control. And it was only very limitedly every once in a while did that Alan Horn have to step in and say, like when Alan Horn fired James Gunn. It very, very limitedly. I guarantee you James Gunn, who worked with Kevin Feige, there's no way he takes that job unless he says to David Zaslav, do I have control? Do me and Peter have control of DC films, or are we just puppets here to carry out your ideas for DC? David Zaslav, are we in charge or are we not in charge? And if James Gunn, all that talk about Henry Cavill being back, which made me happier than anything, but all that talk of Henry Cavill that was all before James Gunn took over. And if they need to reboot, then you reboot. You don't not do what's best for the franchise just because an idiot like John Campea is excited that Henry Cavill's coming back. Like, you don't hold off on doing what is right for the franchise over one actor and one character. You just don't do it. That's how you fail. That's how you fail. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see. All right. Thanks for that, Dr. Bright. Next up, Ryan Meyer sends in a $20 super chat. Thank you, Ryan, for supporting us on that level, man. He writes, I have some personal issues with a well-known film star. See her every time at my work. They're terrible to me. It affects the shows I watch when they're in them. Advice on how I can overcome that. Sorry, I'm driving. Man, listen, one of the big topics that comes up with all of us as movie fans is, when do we separate the artist from the art? And when can we not separate the artist from the art? You know, Russell Crowe is probably my favorite actor. Like, Ryan Reynolds is my favorite movie star. Dwayne The Rock Johnson is my second favorite movie star. I think my pure favorite actor as far as acting goes is Russell Crowe. And, you know, there was in the early 2000s, there was a lot of stories going around that he could be a jackass sometimes. So it's like, when can we separate that? But, you know, I've had a chance to meet Russell Crowe. He was never a jackass to me. So that's easy. If you've had experience with somebody and you've had bad experiences with them, then I could understand it would be more difficult to separate the artist from the art. I really do. Or, you know, a good example of this too is like Chris Brown, right? Certain things are more sensitive for us than others. I have a real thing about men who hit women. I don't know if it comes from the fact that I have two little sisters or whatever, but I have a thing about men who hit women. I'm not saying everybody should feel the same way I do. I'm not saying everybody does feel the same way about I do, but I'm particularly sensitive about men who hit women. And like, for me, I will never watch anything. I remember they tried to put Chris Brown in a couple of movies. I will never watch anything with Chris Brown in it. But I'm not saying other people shouldn't. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm not saying other people shouldn't. But that's a personal thing to me. Like, men who hit women, you're less than useless. Like, I don't know what's happened with this generation, man. There's no men anymore. Anyway, but when a man hits a woman, you're pathetic. Like, you're just garbage. That said, for other people, they may have another certain really sensitive issue. That maybe stealing is a real personal issue, and there's an actor you heard who stole, or whatever else. Like, maybe drugs is a thing, and you find out a certain movie star does a lot of drugs, and there's a very personal issue for you, and therefore you can't watch them. it's all very deeply, deeply, deeply individual, right? And if no one will ever tell you you're wrong for not watching a certain actor's work if you've had very negative experiences with that actor. So I don't think you're obligated to like their stuff at all. If you have had a negative experience with them personally, only you know how that affects you. So yeah, it's a big question, man. And especially if they're in a lot of stuff that you want to watch, I can understand that would be pretty difficult. It totally would. Thanks for sharing your thoughts. It was really interesting hearing that. Thank you for sharing that, man. I appreciate that. All right. Who was it? That was Ryan. Next up, we've got Ronnie S., who writes, will they build a new DCU in the Robert Pattinson Batman universe now? That seems to be logical to introduce new Justice League characters in that universe. No, I disagree. I don't think the way the Robert Pattinson Batman universe, the Matt Reeves Batman universe is set up, there's no place in that universe for the supernatural. That universe is just, to me, way too grounded. It's the same reason why Christopher Nolan never wanted to bring superheroes with superpowers into his Batman universe. I personally feel that the reason Matt Reeves' Batman world works so well, it is because it is so grounded. And so I don't think there's a place in that. I think you ruin, quite frankly, and I might be wrong, totally be wrong. But since you're asking me my opinion, I think you ruin the Matt Reeves Batman universe if you start introducing a magical Amazonian warrior princess from a faraway hidden island with a magic lasso. I mean, in other contexts, Wonder Woman works awesome, but I think you ruin the Robert Pattinson. No, I think the Robert Pattinson thing is going to be left alone. I think Joaquin Phoenix's Joker stuff is going to be completely left alone. I think they will continue to build a DCU with projects that are outside of the DCU. I think you would be ruining Robert Pattinson's Batman universe. Plus, that universe is so dark and gritty and grounded that bringing certain characters into it wouldn't be good for those other characters either. At least that's just the way I see it right now. I could have my mind changed. I could totally have my mind changed, but that's how I kind of see it right now. All right. Thanks for that, Ronnie. Next up, Chuck New 52 writes, good day, John. Been watching for 10 years. Wow. Since I was 16. What's a movie or TV series you wish would have swapped to be a TV show instead of a movie, etc.? If you come down under, beers are on me. Well, I don't drink beer, unfortunately, but I'm sure I can get a Diet Coke. I don't think I have ever watched a movie that I think would have worked better as a TV show. At least not off the top of my head. Maybe if I thought about it for a couple of days, I might be able to come up with something. Anything that I think should have swapped to be a TV show instead of a movie. I can't. I just so prefer the art of movie making over TV, and I love a lot of TV. You know, I love a lot of TV, but I really prefer the art of movie making. So I really can't think of one off the top of my head. I really can't. There have been a number of series that I think would have worked much better as movies. Obi-Wan, for example. I think Obi-Wan would have worked much better as a movie, but I can't think of a lot that I can think of that might have made a better series. I'd have to think about it. It's a good question, Chuck. Thanks for asking. And thank you for watching for 10 years, man. I appreciate that very much. All right. Next up, where did we leave off there? Ryan, DCU, good day, John, 10 years. Okay. Next up, Tracy Dale writes, I understand the theory, but still kind of heartbroken by this news. Listen, I get it, but here's the problem. And this is, listen, fans are passionate people, so they're never going to listen to this anyway. But if you are DC, you have to ask the question, are we satisfied with the limited success that we've had with the DCEU compared to the success our friends up the street at Disney have had with Marvel? And if your answer is no, and you've tried for years just to fix it up and to put Band-Aids on it and try a couple of different things, and at some point you have to get to the realization that we've got to reboot. We've got to start from scratch. We have to start with a clean slate. Because here's the thing, the longer you go without doing it, the harder it's going to be to do it when you eventually have to. I personally think rebooting is something they should have done years ago. But I always understood there were other things to try, other ways to approach it, other possibilities for success. I've always understood that. I always have. But I've also, if you guys watch me for any period of time, you know I have felt for years that the right move for the DCU is to reboot. Start with a clean slate, get rid of all the baggage, start fresh, and build a new and better universe. But that does mean that people like me are going to have to cry myself to sleep that I'm not going to get another Henry Cavill as Superman. Possibly. And I'll just have to soak my pillow with my tears, my fanboy tears. But I get it. You got to put the health of the franchise first. I got water on my glasses. Excuse me for a second. Got to put the health of the franchise first. 100% you do. So, yeah, I get it though. But listen, whenever you're getting in something new, it means giving up something old. Whenever you bring in something new, it means giving up something old. And even if the old thing we're giving up is garbage, and I'm not saying the current DCU is garbage, I'm just saying even if the old thing you're giving up is garbage, there are probably things about the old thing that you really did like and you really do treasure and you really will miss. And I think that'll be the case with DC if they fully reboot. I think it's the right move, but that doesn't mean there aren't going to be things about it that I'll miss. Ben Affleck's Batman, Henry Cavill's Superman. Yeah, and for other people even more. So yeah, I get you. I get you, Tracy. All right. Next up, Keith Abbott writes, Ms. Marvel's Mohan Kapoor, the guy who plays a father, received a sexual harassment allegations from a minor. How do you think this will affect the Marvels or season 2 of Ms. Marvel? I read that report. It seems to be isolated, and the person who is bringing the accusation includes his ex-wife in the story, and the ex-wife is denying that ever happened. Again, I don't know. I'm not there. I don't tend to worry about this TMZ stuff. Clearly, Marvel will have to, because these could be potentially damaging. Maybe yes, maybe no. Marvel will have to investigate it. They're going to have to see if there's actually going to be any legal procedures or proceedings or not. If the law looks into it and decides there's no issue there, they may say that's good enough for us and move on. They may do an internal investigation into it as well. If they deem that there's something very problematic there, they might move on from him and recast him. Or they may not. Again, since you and I know nothing except what's being written about in a report, I tend to try to not get involved in that stuff too much. I'll let them do the investigating. I'll let the law do the investigating. But let's go with the worst case scenario. Let's say that they find out that all the allegations are true. Then they're in a position where they really have no choice but to recast the role. And that sucks. That's a shame. He's wonderful in the role. But if the law enforcement or Marvel themselves do an investigation, they find that, yeah, this stuff is pretty credible, then they need to recast him. Or if they find that it's not credible, then they'll stick with them and they'll move forward. So without any more information other than that, I can't even begin to speculate. All right. Next up, Ronnie S. writes, John, do you consider yourself to be a celebrity? Oh, fuck no. I am a nobody. Look at this room. I'm a dude. I'm some fucking loser sitting in like this little room with a USB microphone and a webcam. I am no celebrity. I am a fucking nobody. I can't remember what website it was. There was some website that was like a definitive celebrity website, and they have A-list, B-list, and C-list. And I remember this one time I actually appeared on the list. I was very, very low on the C-list. At best, on my best day, I am a low-level C-list celebrity. Somebody might recognize at a movie theater once in a while, but no, I'm a Canadian kid living in LA who started a YouTube channel in a spare bedroom and who's currently coming to you on a little webcam. So no, I am no celebrity by any stretch of the imagination, but thank you it makes me feel kind of good that you'd even ask the question. I feel good that you'd even ask the question. Thank you so much. That makes my heart warm. Thank you so much. All right. Final question of the day comes to us from Big Mouth Stan, who writes, is Marlon Brando the second best actor of all time? I don't personally think so. I mean, obviously, I think Daniel Day-Lewis is the greatest actor of all time. Who's second best? That is a matter up for great debate. I honestly, personally don't think there's much debate. I think Daniel Day-Lewis is the greatest actor of all time. But then you start getting into second, third, fourth, fifth. I don't know. I don't know that I would personally have Marlon Brando in my top 4 or 5. He's definitely up there. He's absolutely up there. But I don't know if I've have him up in my top 4 or 5. Peter O'Toole, for me, has got to be up there somewhere. Again, there's a lot of great names, but if you're just presenting me with the question, is Marlon Brando the second greatest actor of all time? My guess would be no, but I think you'd find a number of people that would say yes. For me, I'd say no, but that's just me. All right. With that said, guys, that'll do it for this installment of Open Mic. Thank you so much for being here and joining me and indulging me as I, flapped about my opinion and perspective on things. Thank you so much for being here, guys. And, this is one of the great things about being a movie fan is the fact that not only do we get to enjoy movies, but we get together, share different ideas, opinions, perspectives. I'm sure I said a lot of things today that you really agree with. I'm sure I said a lot of things here today that you disagree with, but that's the fun of it. That's the fun of it, is we get to have that. So thank you so much to all of you guys who sent in all those super chats. Number 1, because you gave us great fun things to talk about. But number 2, you supported this channel as you did, and all of us involved with the John Campea Show. Thank you guys so very much for your support. Okay, guys, don't forget to join us again tomorrow for the next episode of the John Campea Show. It'll be me, Rob, Chris Carr will be in as well. I look forward to seeing you guys there. I hope you will join us. By the way, guys, do me a favor. If you want to help the channel, make sure if you're not subscribed yet, and I know a lot of you guys are subscribed, but if you're not, click on that subscribe button. And hey, even simpler, click the thumbs up button on this video. Leave a comment down below. All that stuff helps push our videos out to an even wider audience. All right, guys, that'll do it for me. Thanks a lot for being here, my friends. And until next time, bye-bye.